Attention, please. Eastern Airlines Flight 19, now ready for departure.
Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're entering the vacation kingdom of the world.
There's enough land here to hold all the ideas and plans we could possibly imagine. We call it Epcot. Will be our experimental prototype city of tomorrow.
Welcome to another episode of the Retro Disney World Podcast, taking you back to the vacation kingdom of the world, the way it was, and the way it is in your memories.
All right, welcome back, everyone. This is our holiday edition of the Retro Disney World Podcast. This one is titled Amongst the Plexiglass Trees. We're going to take you back to the Contemporary Resort from some of its conception all the way through its design and construction and all the wonderful plexiglass and shag carpet interiors. But before we kick that off, let's welcome everybody back. How, JT, Brian, welcome back, our holiday edition here. Hear jingle bells in the background. Hello, all. Oh, yeah.
How we doing?
There we go. Has got the whole tiki thing going. But yeah, welcome back this month. I'm looking forward to this episode. But we've got some corrections and comments and things to go over from last month's episode. How you did some follow-up on the crying alligator, I believe.
Yes. While we were recording the podcast, I was just racking my brain trying to figure out the crying alligator thing. And then literally, I think about 30 minutes later, it dawned on me what the gag was. So I've actually seen the Mark Davis drawings for this. I cannot remember where I saw them, but the idea is supposed to be that the elephant squirts water into the alligator's mouth and then it shoots out of his ears. So if you saw crying, it's just because the pump that was shooting the water out wasn't functioning correctly.
Just diverted to the eyeballs.
Yeah. I guess there's two little slits right behind the eye, I guess, where an alligator's ear would be. So
it's more correct than we ever thought. So
yeah.
Does the baby not shoot the water anymore? Is that like where the joke got?
No, I think what we saw was the baby was shooting the water in, the alligator was closing his mouth, and then instead of it like squirting out a good like 2-3 feet from either side, it was just kind of trickling out of the sides.
Okay. So it's still there. Okay, well, I got to look for that next time. So, all right, good follow up there. So let's see. We've also got we kind of want to thank everybody for listening. So far, the feedback has really been positive. We've got one of our first iTunes reviews. We've got 5 stars on there. So I'd love if anybody out there listening wants to give us an iTunes review, I appreciate it, and that would be great to have. So, all right. Anything else from last month, guys? You want to go over?
Not that I know of right now.
All right, we'll move on. So, all right. So, amongst the plexiglass trees. Now, this brings us to the Contemporary Resort. Now, to kick this off, I have a favorite area of the Contemporary, and I know how you love the Polynesian, but the Contemporary for me has one specific area that I really like. But I want to ask all of you guys, what area do you like? What part of that resort just kind of exudes that classic retro contemporary feel for you?
I'm gonna go first.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I will take it first.
Fiesta Fun Center.
Fiesta Fun Center.
100%. Fiesta Fun Center.
That's it for you, huh?
That's it.
All right, we'll get to why there was any Mexican theme to this a little later, but
Southwest. Yeah.
JT.
I mean, if we're talking retro and old, the biggest thing for me, just the lobby itself. Once you finally got upstairs, you finally walked in, just that area, the monorails, the restaurants, all that. That's my big thing, I'd say.
So the Grand Canyon Concourse.
You got it.
All right. Brian?
Yeah, that I would say the Grand Canyon Concourse and the Mary Blair mural.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, and I added in our notes the least favorite. And for me, the least favorite is the back end of the resort now, the recreation area, which we'll talk about later in the show, the film that shows how it was at one time versus the hardscaped concrete landscape that it is today.
Okay. Mine has to be the outer rim lounge. I for some reason have always gravitated to those little windows peering out on the Seven Seas Lagoon, and just you also too when the contemporary when the monorail pulls in, you look out the other side of the monorail, you see out. But something about the lounge, just looking out over the water, and really, people also say oh, the top of the world lounge, but no, it's gotta be outer rim for me. So that's what I like. All right, so let's talk about a little bit about the conception now. How in one of the earlier episodes we went through and talked about a lot of the pre-opening maps and designs and everything. The contemporary really didn't change much from every map and everything I look at. It's as it was as we see it today, right?
Yeah, the only thing that I noticed today that was different from what got built is the old pre-opening postcard shows this kind of hexagonal restaurant-looking thing sitting over the back end of Bay Lake, which ended up being where all the where the swimming pools and things are. But other than that, it looks like it was pretty much nailed down right from the beginning.
Right, and it always been white, stark white in some of the drawings, and it really hasn't changed at all. I read a really interesting article in a New York Times magazine, and actually I have it here. It's dated October 22nd, 1972, and right on the cover is Mickey looking out from a monorail, looking in as he's going into the Contemporary Resort. And what's really interesting about this article is that it goes into some of the architecture and dives also into how well that the whole area of Walt Disney World is designed and all the new things that they're doing. But what's really interesting is that they took to the Contemporary really strong in this article and really went into a lot of detail. And they pointed out and were very blunt about the fact that WED didn't have any hotel expertise back then. They really didn't have any idea what they were doing when it came to that. And they had Welton, Beckett and Associates design, and the U.S. Steel firm was involved as well. So they got them involved then, and also I believe another company ran the Contemporary for them. Now, the other interesting part is that the reason that U.S. Steel came into play is that they had been toying with lighter weight construction and researching plastic, concrete, and steel and trying to figure out what would be the lightest and least expensive way to build out a hotel building. And they had these ideas that this concept could be left out to create schools and hospitals and all sorts of other buildings that would need some sort of repetitive pattern. So what actually wound up happening is that U.S. Steel, after completing the project, leased this to Walt Disney World. Or actually, it was the Walt Disney Hotel Corp. Right? I don't know how many corporations did they form, who actually did the operation. So, which was really really interesting. Now, we got to get over to JT here. We got to talk about what's your famous line that you've somehow managed to put into every episode so far.
Like a chest of drawers
There
with
we
the
are.
drawers sliding in. Yes.
Now, I have to admit, when we first talked about that, I was laughing. I didn't realize that they actually did use that, and we'll get to the exact line of chest of drawers. But
No, they really did. It was
Yeah.
like the promo, and they, the guy had the voice and everything. He sounded like he could have narrated any attraction at Disney, and they showed it, and it was awesome.
Yep. And they had some great quotes on that, which we'll get to it. Yeah. So the chest of drawers, for those of you who are not familiar, the Contemporary as well as the Polynesian were built first as a steel frame, a lattice work of steel, and then the individual room units were built off site and then slid in like a chest of drawers. And the idea was, as I said earlier, that U.S. Steel was utilizing all these different new lightweight construction materials, and in order to demonstrate the ability to design and create a building that was modular, and demonstrate this technology, that's how they got working with Disney. So the idea here was create something with the furnishings, the utilities, and the other great quote from the film is that the first person to walk into the room could be the maid. I shouldn't say from the film. I'm sorry. That was from the article. And again, they use the same thing for the Polynesian. Now, from a technical standpoint, there's a couple interesting things here. A apparently the rooms weighed less than 6 tons. And you think 6 tons, that's a lot of concrete and steel at that weight. But apparently when you create a regular hotel room, you would be upwards of 30 tons. So I can only assume that they were thinking that the cost savings would come in from that reduction of steel and concrete. And the other tidbit here is that the ability to have the construction site, which we'll get to in a second, was near and on site. And they were able to build the rooms to a 15-foot width, which was good because they could then transport them. Since it was so close by, the maximum width for a traffic vehicle at the time was 12 feet. So by building them close by, they could get to the 15-foot maximum and drive them right over. So it's kind of interesting that right there, that tells me that this is not going to be successful if you're thinking about expanding this idea out. Because correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I believe they wanted this facility to start to make other hotel rooms for other projects once they were done.
Well, I'm sure they would have used that same concept for the Asian and the Persian and the rest of the hotels too.
Right.
And the other benefit that they were seeing there was the time savings, because they could work on the superstructure of the hotel at the same time they were building out the rooms. So when you have two years to put everything together, it's like you can get the rooms built while you're building the hotel, slide it into place, and bam, you're open.
Yep.
And for everybody that is listening, we do there was 2 resorts, right? Contemporary Polynesian that opened, and then Fort Wilderness. But so if you look at the only 2 that actually had rooms were built with this method. So like every hotel at Disney at one point was built with this method.
Right.
Yeah.
Now the facility that built these rooms was apparently it's just north of where Port Orleans Resort area was. Which is interesting. I need to go back to some of the satellite views that we've uncovered from the late 60s, early 70s, and try to figure out when that building disappeared and what happened to it. So let's look at the points here. We've reduced our weight. We're building something which is good. We're reducing the weight. We're reducing the cost. As Hal said, you can get this done quickly. You got 2 years to build it. You've got simultaneous construction going on. But now we've built something that we can't transport on the roads, right? Because we're over the limit. So think about that point as we move on. U.S. Steel did a couple different documentaries, a couple different films. They put a long one together, which for some reason I can't find. That's the one we referenced in a previous episode where we said if you can't go to sleep at night, just put that on. But there is a great TV commercial that was put together featuring the Contemporary. And what's great about it is that it was filmed before the resort was complete. If you look carefully and freeze frame it, you can see some early construction and everything. And it features this family arriving on the monorail and being, escorted up to their room and joyfully busting into the room and seeing everything. And then they're waving from the balcony as the announcer comes over. And then between, though, there's these wonderful clips of the actual factory doing work, and it goes through the order that they built it. They put the steel frame down, they pour the concrete floor, add the wall panels, which incidentally were another U.S. Steel company. So they got their sister company in. They'd put the AC in, then the wall coverings, the complete bath, sliding doors, and then they trucked it over. And what happened, JT?
They slid it in like a chest of drawers.
That's right.
Now, bear in mind, I do see on this commercial maps on the wall. Just a little teaser there.
Absolutely. We're going to be talking about those a little bit later. There is that awesome Paul Hartley map in there.
Now would be a good time to mention that you would have had a great view of them sliding those in from Roy's cabin.
Yeah. That's true. Yes. Roy's cabin. He would, especially those on the east side, he could see all those drawers just sliding right into the chest.
So you didn't think I'd get it in there?
No, I didn't. Did you? I'm confident now, Brian. I really am. You're going to squeeze Roy's cabin into every episode.
The real question is, did these maps that were hanging on the wall, were they in there at the factory, and did they take the car ride in, and did they get slid in with the building? Like, did they put pictures on the wall at the U.S. Steel factory?
Well, according to this article that I read and everything else, says all they had to do was be plugged in.
Wow. Okay.
Now
plug it in.
There's carpet on I was going to say carpet on the wall, but it was 71, so there probably could have been carpet on the wall. But yeah, and U.S. Steel was really confident, and so was Disney, that hospitals, as I said, hospitals and schools would be built this way. And their cement division, everybody had something to do with it, and the wall panel. So who knows? Maybe there's the art division of U.S. Steel with it.
Yeah.
Put the maps up. All right. So fact number 2. You're going to start to draw conclusions as you're listening here. The cost of the rooms was initially estimated at $17,000 by U.S. Steel, and unfortunately, that wound up costing over $100,000 per room. So nearly over 5 times as expensive as they expected. And the failure there is not so much that the price went up. The problem is that the cost of the rest of the building didn't go down. So when you think about that, is that if you can build it traditional and save money, there's really no point. And what Disney realized and U.S. Steel realized afterwards is that the real arena for this was specialty areas, such as bathrooms. So after the hotels were completed and they realized that the Asian and the Persian and everything else with the Venetian wasn't going to happen, they actually produced a number of bathroom units for Sheraton. And that's I don't know how long that went for, but by 72, in this article to the New York Times Magazine, this is a year after opening, they're talking about that the bathrooms are already being made or completed. So that probably became shuttered pretty quick.
It's an interesting, just to note, the original plans for Epcot for the Florida project, this is obviously captures that a great deal. Walt's whole idea was to test new methods of manufacturing, innovative design, in partnership with American industry, and this was probably one of the best examples of the original project and how it was incorporated into what they ultimately built there.
Yep.
But yet, at a what was that? $100,000 a hotel room?
Yeah, $100,000. The total cost of the resort was over $100 million by the end.
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And what advantage did they get out of it other than a really cool commercial from the 70s?
They built bathrooms.
The bathroom division.
Well, you know what? The only thing I can think of is that the reason that they could do that why the bathrooms made sense, they call them specialty areas, is because there's a lot of labor effort. If you think about the labor that it takes to pour a concrete floor and put a wall up, there's not much. But think about installing things like that and getting behind walls and routing things. That makes sense where you can put the copper in and nowadays we're using PEX and all that stuff. But you could do all that type of plumbing way ahead of time and then literally plug those in. But it just did not make sense, overall.
Our inflation calculator, $100,000 in 1971, $586,000 per room.
Per room.
Can you imagine the Disney Vacation Club rates for that?
I got another one for you. In the New York Times Magazine, it does state, and it says why they're charging upwards of $44 a night for the room. So what does that show us? What's 44 back in 1971 now? That's got
dollars would be $257 a night.
257. So basically, we've gone higher than inflation.
Oh, by a lot.
By a lot.
That's a point that's raised a lot of times these days.
Yeah, but think about that. I mean, that they had to recoup the cost there.
I swear the U.S. Steel went from these rooms to the bathroom division, and then it went to the shower curtain ring division run by Del Griffith.
Right.
That's where it had to go.
They're filled with helium.
Connie
They're
Chung
very light. They're very
light rings, yes.
They're filled with helium.
Exactly. Now, JT, I got a question for you. We talk about the chest of drawers. We slide those drawers in. Now, when you get your socks in the morning, you open your drawer back up, right?
Yes.
Now, what about these? Do you think they were supposed to come back out?
I think everybody thinks they were supposed to. Like, we're going to go okay, we're going with the 81 refresh, say. 10 years later, we slide it out and we just throw in the new drawer, and it's those sweet 80s colors, instead of the...
Forget the fact that if you look at the construction that there's welders, welding steel beams around these. Forget the fact that it's then encased in concrete around the steel beams that have been welded. Let's just say you could pull them out. Do we really think that renting a crane, setting all that up, the safety of pulling out, something that weighs 6 tons, all that deconstruction, to then put it on a truck, cart it over to a facility where, all these little ants are going to go marching in, fix it, and then you're going to cart it back, pull it back up. It makes no sense that,
How many rooms are at the Contemporary?
Good question. I don't, in
Like
the main.
Over 1,000.
Yeah.
So I just picture doing that like over 1,000 times, the crane out there, and then
Exactly.
like, oh, my castle view is ruined because they're putting in an extra room. What a horrible idea.
Yeah, it doesn't work. So anybody out there thinking that these were supposed to come back out, no, they're not. It was just
Because there's a lot of people say like, oh, the building settled and they sunk into the concrete. So when Disney did try to pull them out, but I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. Like the concrete crumbled and then the drawers wouldn't slide out. Like if your dresser collapsed.
They just shaking the thing trying to get them out.
Right.
Yeah.
There are 383 rooms in the tower.
383. Okay.
Yeah.
Multiply that times 100,000. Go.
Yeah. If you can't see the electric light parade because you got like this giant crane in your way, or you wake up one morning and there's another room looking into your room as it's coming down.
The other myth, along with the removal, was that the reason they welded them into place afterwards was the growth of mold between the gaps where they allegedly sled these things in and out. And again, just like Walt's frozen head, it's an old wives' tale. It's not true.
We don't know.
So there's no mold at the Contemporary.
No, but Walt's head is there.
Okay.
Somewhere in the country.
Facing Roy's cabin.
Right. It's in the freezer in Roy's cabin.
That's perfect.
Now, we have a question mark on this next point, which was that U.S. Steel was going to run the hotel, as I talked about earlier, because they had no clue. But we have some notes here that they screwed up, deadlines weren't being met, and do we know if that's when Disney actually decided to pick up the task and run the show?
How?
That is my impression. It's like,
Okay.
once the price estimates came in and once the person who was in charge of the contracting for that hotel said, oh, no, it's not going to be done by October 71. It's going to be more like 72. Then they were out. U.S. Steel's interests in the hotel were bought out, and Disney started the Buena Vista Construction Company, and that was the end of it. So that's when they decided, all right, we're running this thing. We're done, which probably some people might argue caused the ultimate downfall of the Disney empire and what we're seeing today.
Yeah. Really taking over that portion of it, yeah.
Yeah, because if they had continued to not run the hotels, you would not have that situation that we have now, where the hotel bookings and the DVC are the thing where all the money is, and the parks are just there to like fill up hotel rooms and sell DVCs.
I don't know. I just can't imagine, 14, 15 Swan and Dolphins, though, as long as the architecture was cool.
Yeah. The big black hole in the top of it.
Don't start that rumor. Don't even start that rumor with me. Don't start. All right. Now the design. It's funny. I read a couple. Like I said, I read a couple of the articles. The New York Times one. There's a couple of the other early pre-opening stuff, and they all harped on the following topic. It says, longer than a football field. It has a 10-story atrium, soaring heights, open concourse, monorails gliding swiftly and silently through, and that whole the Grand Canyon concourse. I don't know. It's JT. I think it was you who said, Brian, that's you were just that's your epitome of contemporary here. And I this is kind of, I want to talk about the design and the decor of the area here. I'm kind of getting my head ahead of myself, but when the Contemporary first opened, there was the motif, and then the style at the time was quite a bit of orange. There was a lot of Southwest design to it, and obviously you had the Mary Blair mural with the hidden 5-legged goat, as most people know, and the plexiglass trees that we're referencing right in the title of our podcast here were literally these trees made of different shapes of plexiglass that were inserted amongst each other at different angles and went down the length of the concourse, and they had these lamp shades that would come up and almost look like, I don't know how to describe them. The steel was a fountain that came up and around with these great balls of glass surrounding the lamps. But I'm going to ask a question here. This sounds silly. I've been to the Contemporary many, many times, and fortunately, it stayed pretty truthful, right, to its original design. Other than some of the decor is obviously not as garish as it was back then. Am I the only one who gets
Oh,
confused?
I think you mean awesome.
Awesome. I'm sorry. You are. I do admit it was awesome. Yes, it is. But am I the only one that always gets confused of which side of the concourse I'm on and which way I'm facing? It's always perplexed me. I don't know why.
Monorail's kind of on one side, and then I don't know.
It doesn't matter. I'm always screwed up with it.
I've just always entered from a boat from Fort Wilderness. You walk in, you go through all that conference area, and then you go up the escalator, then boom, right in there. That's kind of, to me, the entrance.
You could just go wherever your pal Mickey tells you to go.
Hey, yeah, pal
just
Mickey.
Listen to your doll, and
you go that way. Speaking of escalators, actually, though.
Yes.
All right, this always bothered me. The monorail exit.
Tiny escalator problem.
Yeah, well, come on. What is up now? You go that long distance in the switchback, and I kind of get that, because if you got a full monorail coming back from the Magic Kingdom, I mean, okay, that thing's packed. Maybe it's also for evacuation purposes too, just in case. But yeah, you go through that long corridor, then you make the left, you do the 180, and come right back, and then you get to this escalator that is so narrow. I never understood the design of that. We couldn't have two coming down. I mean, you think about the throngs of people coming out at the end of a day, and then, still to this day, and the monorail, the escalator dumps you into this tiny little area, the bathrooms and water fountains. That area just never seemed to make sense.
Well, there's a lot of bottlenecks and weird.
I think Hal will probably educate you on the.
Well, I was just going to say people were a bit smaller in the 70s than they were today. So
and the crowds were smaller, and mostly it was hotel guests utilizing the facilities in the hotel.
Why do you have to walk 35 feet down and 35 feet back?
Well, I think part of it is the fact that there's always been commerce, restaurants and stores on the first level, and you can't very well have escalators, dumping you out into the middle of the shops and everything else, the way that they have it set up right now.
Yeah, so I think I have 2 points that I don't know if this is definitive, but might sort of help maybe get some things moving in the right direction.
Just calm me down. I mean, I'm a little disturbed.
So the first one is now think about the Ticket and Transportation Center. Think about everywhere that you get in and off of a monorail. How many sides are used for ingress and egress of monorails?
Yep.
2.
Yep.
On the way that platform is set up, you're only allowed to get in and out of one side. So in order to handle crowd flow out and then people waiting to get on, it's like you need about double the length in order to deal with that. And having I don't know if this was set up the way before, but having just gone to Destination D, I was really surprised that it wasn't set up where there was a holding area for people to wait to get on, where you basically the gates open up and you walk directly into one of the things. Mm-hmm. There's basically a hole at one end of the pen. And when the monorail shows up, it's like everybody comes out of that one hole and tries to find a space while people are coming out of the monorail.
Yep.
And trying to exit. So it's a really stupid little nasty setup.
Yeah, I mean the Polynesian's similar, but not nearly as bad because you've got everybody funneling, a little differently. But it's always irked me. I don't know. And
then the other part of that is so back when you had to buy a ticket or have a hotel room to ride the monorail. Right now, where that escalator goes up and down, there used to be a glass booth in the middle of that thing where they would either sell you a monorail ticket or passes to the park. That's all since been covered up, but there actually used to be somebody stationed there to make sure that you either had a ticket or would sell you a ticket in order to get on that monorail and go around.
And that was down at the base of the monorail, you said?
Yeah,
down, I'm sorry, at the base of the escalator.
Yeah, base of the escalators where they go up and down.
Okay.
I think there's a penny crusher right about there now.
There is. Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
I always like, though, too, the inside. It is the most different feeling getting on that monorail because it's kind of quiet, obviously, because you're inside, but it just has a different feel. The Polynesian, you get off it. The Contemporary has its own unique feel, completely indoors, it still, to me, feels retro to this day, even if it does have new carpet and everything else.
And since we're there and it's a holiday episode, I'll throw in our little widget here. Last year I attended D23 had a holiday event down in Orlando, and the pastry chef for the Contemporary was one of the presenters and talked about the large gingerbread houses that they now have on display in all the resorts. One of the things they did not account for is the vibrations that the monorail coming through causes. So the first year that they did the gingerbread house in the Contemporary, pieces of it started falling off the first day.
It's awesome.
And so it was like a month-long engineering lesson for them to how much, basically they had to design it the way they design skyscrapers now to be able to handle the winds. They now have to design the gingerbread houses to be able to handle the vibrations of the monorail. And the funny thing is when Hal and I were there for Destination D weekend, 2 of the roof shingles had fallen off of this year's gingerbread house.
They slide it in like a chest of drawers too every year. They
Absolutely.
just
I can see springs under there soon. Designing them like they need to put it on a platform like a shake table that can absorb the shocks like they did to build those buildings out in California now,
I
right?
think they just need to use stronger glue.
Oh man. Well, Brian, I know you have a part of the Contemporary that's kind of near and dear to your heart too, because it's I kind of call them the stepchild of the Contemporary. I always would go across the monorail, I'd look down, and I see the north and the south wings, and just go, what are they? They just never seem to fit in, in my own opinion as a child. But you've got some memories of that area too.
My first time staying at the Contemporary was about 5 years ago. And I stayed in one of the garden wings, the one that's still standing, which I think is the north garden wing. I don't remember if it's north or south. I lose my bearings when I'm there.
See, nobody can remember the directions inside the Contemporary.
Yeah,
Right.
see, I'm not the only one. Okay.
it's the one by the lagoon, the path.
It's the one. It's the one. Yeah, it's the one where the boats sail by on their way over the road.
Yeah.
That just shows how symmetrical that building is that you can't remember.
So anyway, we stayed there. We were in the back end of that, and I hated it. I came out of there saying, I don't know why anybody wants to stay here. It's terrible. And I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I have this dislike of that hardscape area where they have the pools and the really nothing else anymore. The dock. When we talk a little later about the film, the Contemporary film that accompanies this episode on our website, the film of the pool area and the trees, and it's just beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful layout, a nice big beach where people could actually use the water in Bay Lake. And what has replaced it now, I don't like it at all. It's my least favorite area of the resort. But staying in there, I mean, it's basically like you're in a two-level motel off, with this glorious resort in the offing. Even like the elevator was like run down, and everything about it, just you come from the majesty of this 10-story Grand Canyon Concourse Tower that's iconic and has a monorail going through it, and all of a sudden you're over here waiting for Tom Bodette to let you in your room at the Motel 6 next to the Contemporary.
Well, that's what they were what's really interesting is they were trying to avoid that type of problem that they had at Disneyland, as we discussed in other episodes, so that they didn't want that type of thing popping up, and yet here they are creating it for, I believe, as we said, there was only 300 in the main tower, so
383,
383,
and there's 600 and some in the whole resort. So half the rooms are in these wings.
Right. Yet you never heard of those, in all the PR stuff that we've gone through. You never hear of those
they
wings.
didn't push the nice garden wing on the
right.
It's a garden view.
And truthfully, I mean, we referred to it a little earlier, but the change in direction for the organization as a whole. Part of the mandate when Ron Miller was deposed and Michael Eisner was brought in was immediately build more hotels. They're revenue generators. They keep people on the property, and the addition of the hotels led to the expansion of the parks, and the building of the studios and the building of the Animal Kingdom, and obviously they went nuts in the 90s with adding the Swan and Dolphin and everything else that they added down there, but the resorts themselves were always an attraction with the Contemporary and the Polynesian, and they really outdid themselves when they started adding, the Grand Floridian and, my favorite of the new construction stuff. There's a lot of people love the Animal Kingdom Lodge and what they did there, but all along the river, Sassagoula River there, where they built Old Key West and then the 2 Port Orleans resorts with the old tree houses that used to be there. Right. I love taking that boat back and forth. They did a great job there. But that's a lot of what happened. The garden wings are a good indication of, they just stopped building hotels after that.
Right.
And
Were the garden wings there on opening day? Those were there, right?
Yes.
Yeah. They were part of the original construction.
Because remember, that was a convention hotel, and that was Disney World's only convention hotel. So even when they were ready to open that up, it's like they had conventions booked from like January of '72 straight through. Exactly. Yeah.
And then now the other question I have, and this might be something nobody knows. Are the rooms still as they were in the 70s? Because when I roll by on a boat, I literally look at them and think they've never refurbed them. That's how old they look from the outside. I really
the garden wings, you mean?
Yes, I feel like they should be called the retro wings because they look all dingy and old.
They're exactly as the tower rooms are in terms of decor, and I stayed in them in the end of the last design, and I've now stayed in the tower twice. And I love it. I mean, the Contemporary's done a complete 180 for me. And to me, the real attraction now is the proximity to the Magic Kingdom, the ability to walk from your hotel to the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, that's the big draw to that hotel.
Well, it's the big draw now. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I don't think it was that big of a problem because catching a boat or a monorail, parking in the lot wasn't the absolute nightmarish experience it can be now. So the attraction of being, that close to, now you can be at the Ticket and Transportation Center and might have to wait for 2 runs of the monorail before you actually get on one. Just because of crowds and, again, it's the whole development of the residential community down there, the Floridian community that actually goes to the parks all the time, which didn't exist 20 years ago.
Right.
So it's just changed the nature of who goes to the park. And so the Contemporary is a big plus for me because of proximity to the park.
Real quick, what would you pay per night to stay in an original 70s themed redone room at the Contemporary? Say they had, they got pirate rooms. They got, what would you pay to stay there one night?
It has to have
smoking or non-smoking?
Whatever you want. I'm sure. like it's mint condition. Just it's called the retro room in the retro wing or something. I don't know. That's a tough thing to answer.
Well, I mean, the rooms already go about $400 a night. So
one night, what would you do to experience it again?
$5.
Yeah, and you got to have one of the egg chairs in there. You got to have the egg chair,
identical, just
everything. Yeah,
just like they slid it into the room right there.
Yeah,
that's what it
like
would
a chest of drawers.
You got it.
So now the other part that you mentioned, Brian, was the recreation area, and that was just a massive amount of concrete, very little design to it. We had the concentric painted, the circular pool. We had the square pool. Very, very contemporary, obviously, for its time. But over there we had the boat rental, and that was a place to catch the bob around boats too.
I'll tell you what, one of the things that sticks out in the pictures of the day is that starburst dock that they have.
Oh yeah.
There's that dock with all the spokes on it, which obviously isn't there today, but looks gorgeous.
Was that for the water sprite rental, or was that just what did they use that for?
The water sprites are what are tied up next to it in the film that you have.
So that must have been okay. So you go out to arm number 3 and get your water sprite 20 feet out. Interesting.
That's fun.
So, all right. Well, let's go back inside here. Now we had the Grand Canyon Concourse. We had the Grand Canyon Terrace, which is where Chef Mickey and the Contempo Cafe are now. They had mariachi bands during dinner to continue with the Southwest feel. There's a great picture. I gotta find it of a mariachi band welcoming a monorail in. So as the monorail's pulling in, there's a mariachi band sitting. And I
that's in the Magic of Walt Disney World. That movie
is that what is it?
Yeah, that's what it's from.
I don't know. I never drew the
Hotel of
Southwest
Tomorrow
connection.
has a mariachi band in it at all times.
Right, yeah.
It's a Contemporary. It's a big Adobe,
Well, who can okay, I would just like someone to explain to me how you have the most futuristic hotel possible, and then you overlay it with a Southwest America. theme.
Yeah,
Right.
Well, the colors match the 70s, coloring, like that orange and brown stuff.
Maybe
but
they did the colors first and then said, "Oh, what does
But
this go?"
I've never heard anyone say, I remember reading something about like, oh well, we have this giant elevator tower that we need to do something with. Hey, why don't we call Mary Blair and see if she can come up with something? So
Yeah.
was her design the thing that ended up like theming the interior of that, or did someone have some other bright idea and then that became part of it? It's just so bizarre to me.
Because you would picture it looks like something in 2001 or something. You go inside, it's like, but not, boom, you're in the Southwest, in the Grand Canyon concourse.
Right. And then every restaurant, it's like all the rest of the colors, as Todd mentioned, it's like everything is then really themed to the nth degree around this Southwest concept. All the ballroom names,
the Fiesta Fun Center, right?
Everything.
There's Pueblo.
There's another fantastic picture which takes us up to the top, and I wish I could find it. There is this lounge singer standing in the I believe it was the elevator lobby at the top, and he's standing there with the microphone. He's got this stash and this big
of course he does.
Spaceballs type. Oh yeah, of course. And he's got the blue leisure suit on, and behind him is this incredible hexagon shaped concentric circle of yellows and oranges and reds and browns. It's and it kind of sums up that decor that we're talking about in like one picture. And the guy's ready, like, you can just hear him say, well, hey, I'm glad to see you guys are all back this evening. We got a big show for you, Thank you for coming.
That was there until the early 90s.
Yeah, until they made the what do you call it? That place.
The California Grill.
California Grill, which I've been to the California Grill. I haven't been to the rehash of it, so.
Now, are we going to talk about the top of the world, or
we are? Because I've got some interesting film of that. One of the guest stars that we're going to have on at some point, David Coolidge. Some of the film that we restored for him actually had footage of Phyllis Diller and Lamb Chops performing up there, and Ben Vereen. I've got footage of him playing the trumpet.
Let me jump in.
Yeah,
it's Sherry Lewis and Lamb Chop. It wasn't Phyllis Diller eating lamb chops.
I'm sorry. There's my correction.
That would be a fascinating film.
Yeah, hey, Phyllis Diller's having dinner. What's she having, lamb?
Lamb chops. I'm sorry.
On top of the world.
On top of the world. I stand. It's funny. That's the second time I've made that mistake, because when I first tweeted it out, I said Phyllis Diller, and they'd be like, "No, it's Sherry Lewis," and I screwed it up. But anyway, and they also had they had a second room up there, the Gulf Coast room, which they really pushed the flambe at the table. There's a couple pictures of people, romantically engaged in a dinner, and this guy's coming over there, opening up the tray and all this, wonderful stuff. That was the Gulf Coast room, and then you had the lounge downstairs. So, then the top of the world, they also had the big review show, and that ran all the way up until the 90s as well.
Yeah, so from what I was been reading in our research here, they did the live performers like Phyllis Diller and the whatnots up until, I can't remember, I think the 80s, and then they replaced that with Broadway at the top.
That's right.
For whatever reason. So that's when you had the bigger live show up there.
My mom, we went to see that. My grandparents were big on it, and my mom was just beside herself. They came over during Hello, Dolly, and asked her to sing. She was
You were
mortified.
up there? You saw this show?
I saw the top.
Wow.
Yeah, Broadway at the top show. Which, if you're into show tunes, my grandparents, that was they loved, Showboat and all those other different tunes and all that stuff.
I picture this area like VIP, though. It comes across me. Was it very or you could just anybody could book it?
Anybody could book it, but everybody. I remember as a kid, we went up there, and the best part was I forgot to pack a shirt and tie. So my dad had to take me over to the village marketplace and get a shirt and tie. So and that was part of my parents' gripe. And we're going on vacation. I don't want to pack a suit and tie and all this.
Did you have to dress up to get up there?
I think it was highly recommended. I don't know if a tie was necessary, but
smoking jacket for sure.
It was suit coat required when it opened.
Yeah, is that what it was? And then I think they got later on they got a little more lax, but it was a nice evening out. Essentially, it was one of the few places you could go for that level of entertainment and dining at the time too.
And this is where it really is critical that this was a convention hotel. If you look at the setup of there from from the early 70s up until the 80s when the mix changed, it's everything there is set up for the convention era. conventions over at 6:00. Yes, you have a nice supper club upstairs to like wine and dine and smoke and drink your bourbons.
That
And
makes sense. You go on the
yeah,
balcony, watch the fireworks, close a deal, the whole thing. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you just go downstairs and there's monorails gliding swiftly and silently.
Stuff to buy for your husband or wife right there in the shops. And
That's right.
That's right.
But
Wow.
I did mention my first visit, which was in January of '88. At that time, they were doing Chef Mickey's breakfast at the top of the world. And so I was in there. I mean, I ate there as at California Grill when it opened, but we had, the buffet breakfast that's now down on the Grand Canyon concourse level. Back then we were in the top of the world. So, which was a very cool place. It was one of the first breakfast buffets I ever had, as a kid. And because I'd never seen all these various choices. I mean, breakfast in my house was whatever was being served, and that's what you ate. And
Were
then
you in
obviously
line? Were you in line next to the guy with the mustache? He was like hungover, just like, give me these eggs, kid.
I don't remember. I do remember my parents making us dress up for everything when we were still there. That was 1988. We had long pants, and I had to wear to Empress Lily and this and that. Oh, I hated it. Just let me give them my shorts and sneakers.
Just shows you like what you talked about this last week, how big of a deal this vacation was back then, and now it's so just everybody just go like you can go
passe.
You can go to the top of the world, and I mean I've been up there in shorts and a t-shirt just to get a drink, and then go sneak out and watch the fireworks. You don't need to be up there in a suit and tie. So
Yep, and there were other rooms up there too. I think they're still there. There's other meeting rooms and stuff. But
yeah.
Okay, so the next section we're going to talk about here is the Paul Hartley map that hung on the rooms. Not only the Polynesian, but also the contemporary. And we have a special guest today. It's Chad Lincecum. And Chad is from WDWmap.com. And he has faithfully digitally restored the map that is hung on the wall and has them available on his site as canvassed prints. Chad, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So give us a little background on how you got into this, how you what your affection is for this map. I mean, it's one of the ones that, we know that there's old ones out there. The originals were on Masonite. And how'd you get into this, and where does your attraction to them come from?
Well, my parents took me to Disney in 1973, and we used to go every Christmas time after that. And I just remember we always stayed at the Contemporary most of the time. Sometimes we'd be at the Polynesian. And I just remember just staring at the map and just being infatuated with it, and I just loved it. And ever since they were removed in the early '80s, I always wanted one, and I wasn't one of the ones lucky enough to get a copy. So I did what I could when I got access to it, and I recreated it.
Now I've got one of them sitting here, and I mean, for those of you who haven't seen it, again, go to WDWmap.com and take a look. But you've got it completely restored, digitally remastered, so to speak, to the original. And what kills me is that this thing sat on the wall, as you said, to the '80s, and was still promoting the Persian and the Venetian, in the Asian hotels. And probably by the time they came down, the Grand Floridian was way into development. Ground wasn't broken yet. But I mean, these things are really great. What areas of the map do you look at and are the ones that you remember the most from taking a look at?
I always remember it's the Western River Expedition.
Oh yeah,
that's what it was at the time when it was drawn.
Right.
That became a Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. So that was always interesting, because when I was staring at it, nothing was there yet. It was just open space before that was ever built. So I always remember looking at that. And then I always remember the Ticket and Transportation Center. For some reason, there's something unique and neat about that area of the map that I find pretty amazing.
Yep. And then what's really interesting, how this goes back to our preview episode, it has the spur line, right, of the monorail going right up to the Persian and having apparently to turn around and come back.
Right. Yeah. And that was another thing that I noticed. I mean, because you've seen the photos or the reproductions showing how it was going to be going through Tomorrowland early on.
Right.
But this one doesn't have that. This one actually just goes to the Persian and stops.
Yeah, and it's got the STOL port on there. It's got the golf resort with blue roofs. The Polynesians on there. what is also very attractive to this map is just the skewed sense of perspective on it. You have things that are very top down view, and then you have things that are isometric. The contemporary is off at completely the wrong angle, but the point is well taken. I have to say, Chad, you've done a fabulous job in hanging on the wall too. I've got it up there. It looks really, really, really good. So,
Great.
Now, how what do you remember about this map? You visited down there when you were, young. Do you remember it on the walls at all?
Well, we never got to stay in the hotels because we always stayed with relatives. So the first time I ever saw that map was at a Disneyana sale sometime probably in the late 80s. And at that point, I think someone wanted $350 for it. And we scratched our heads. It's like my friends and I trying to figure out if we could put up enough money to get that. And we didn't. And man, I was going to say, I sure wish that I would have gotten it then, but I can get one now.
Right.
Exactly.
There you go. Yeah, and Chad, tell us a little bit about the sizes and the types that you offer, because they're all stretched canvas or some of them paper. How's it work?
They're all on canvas. I offer them either just in a roll, just the canvas rolled up, where you can have it stretched or framed yourself. And I also now offer it actually stretched in a frame. Mm-hmm. So, and I do sizes all the way up to the original was approximately 60 by 48, I believe. And I go all the way down to, 16 by 20. So I have all different sizes depending on how big your space on your wall is.
I've got the 24 by 20 is here, and it's a great size. It's not too big, not too large. I can't imagine the 5-footer though. What did you get for yourself?
I have the 36 by 36 by 24, I believe.
Oh, okay, so you haven't scaled to your
to
the largest.
Yep.
So that's excellent. And
what's the most common size people buy?
Actually, a lot of people buy the really large one. The largest,
really?
Yeah.
Being faithful to the original. Now, has anybody? Yep. We were talking earlier on the podcast before you joined us about what would we do to pay? How much would we pay to get into a retro room? So imagine if you can find the chairs, find the eggshell chairs. You find your map on the wall. We put your map on the wall. We could all be back in '71 enjoying a nice room there. So
wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah,
I think I'm going to book a contemporary room next time I go. Take the map, put it on the wall.
Yeah,
and then boom, there we go.
And then just see if the maids or anybody
just rent the place for a week, no maid service, and at the end of the week, the whole room's refurbished back to the way it originally was in 1971.
And then they'll slide it out and re-update it.
You have to fix I always remember the closets. They had these awesome built-in closets there that my sister and I would always run through, and I remember them so well. They had this awesome lighting. They were just amazing.
Now, Chad, did the original, as we said earlier, was on Masonite. Didn't it have a silver frame on it? Was there a silver frame on the original?
I believe so. Yes, if memory serves, I believe it was kind of like a floating Masonite with a silver frame.
Right. So, well, if anybody wants to get their own copy of it, you can go to wdwmap.com, and I believe it's /retro WDW, and through that you get a 10% discount. So that'll help if you want to purchase the map. And Chad, I got to say here, we're going to have one of yours as one of our giveaways for our audio puzzler. So we've been telling our viewers, our listeners, every month everybody has a chance to win a prize in our audio puzzler. And we've been talking about a big prize at the end of 2015. And we've decided, and thanks to Chad, that one of his reproduction maps is going to be the grand prize at in the December 2015 episode when we announce that. Anybody winning the audio puzzler and anybody who gets a correct answer in the audio puzzler will be entered to win the map. So, Chad, I appreciate you having you on here and being able to talk about this. You want to stay with us for the rest of the show here?
Sure.
All right.
Sounds great.
Sounds good. So, I think it's a perfect segue into the puzzler. We're going to talk a little bit about the puzzler from 2 months ago. The reason being is that I do apologize. I forgot to actually mention what the answer was. So it was kind of my goof. So in our preview episode, the answer was Legacy by Steve Woods, and that is played at the Epcot Entrance Plaza. So I never mentioned it. I apologize. And So last month we had one that really didn't have a lot of music to it. It was pretty basic, straightforward, and we got a couple correct answers sent to us, and I have to say that this month's winner, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing this name wrong, it's Carolyn Pongras, I believe, and she guessed the answer, and the answer is actually the World of Motion caveman foot power scene, right as you would World of Motion would go up and take you around right up to the entry level into the ride. The first scene was Caveman. He was sitting there blowing on his feet, and that was the audio puzzler. So appreciate that, and Carolyn, we'll get your monthly prize out to you guys really quickly. And so this month we have another one, and let's play that here and take a listen. All right, so that's this month's puzzler. If you know the answer, please send it to podcast@retrodisneyworld.com. All winning entries will be entered into the monthly contest for a prize, and then all correct answers will be entered into our yearly prize at the end. So this prize for this month, to play in with the contemporary theme, I do have a Mickey head ornament made of additional concentric circles. So in the spirit of the concentric circles of the contemporary pool, and as well as the holiday season, we do have a nice concentric Mickey head ornament, which is the prize for this month. You'll receive it in January after the holidays. I apologize, but
be ready for next year you win your map.
Yep.
When you win the map, then you can have the map and the ornament in the same room.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly. And if you are sending in your entries, please get them in by January 11th, 2015. The podcast will be produced and available starting around January 19th. So you do have to have your entries in by then.
Just remember, if you can't wait a year for that map, get yourself over to wdwmap.com.
That's right. Absolutely.
Buy the big one.
Yeah, the big one. It's the most popular.
Be like the cool guys. Yep,
it's the most popular. All right. So JT, viewer mail. What do
we got a good one.
Or listener mail. I should really.
Yeah.
We'll call it viewer mail.
Viewer mail.
Sure, whatever. This one goes back to a post I did, and it kind of connects to that. And you'd have to scroll through the Retro Disney site. I posted about a Disney globe, and David asks about the globe. He brings it up. It was kind of a globe that looked like, I won't say similar to Chad's maps, but had that same retro feel. It was actually like a legitimate 3D globe, and he says he had one his aunt gave him, and then he says they were giving them out when the park first opened, and he said he couldn't see our post, which I linked to a Craigslist sale in the area. The guy was asking like close to $300 for it, but Hal kind of came in with some info on that. So Hal, you want to answer his question about the globes?
Sure. So the globe that he's talking about, it is very much looks like sort of the maps that were put out back in the 70s. So it was a full circle, kind of like a globe that you would see at school. And then the base looked like it was made out of wood, even though it was really plastic. And it actually had the Walt Disney World logo around the base of the thing. It was very cool. I owned one briefly before I gave it up. And what I found out was that was a promotional item that was given to travel agents. So they could put it in the offices. And then when people came in to book vacations, they would see this Walt Disney World globe and hopefully spit it and get attracted to it and say like, hey, I want to go on vacation there. At the time, the travel agencies used to get all kinds of things like posters, and I know from my tiki stuff that people had made like tiki statues and like little menehunes and thing to put in travel agencies. So I don't know how many of them were made, but you do see a fair number of them show up, and they usually sell for about the $200 to $300 range these days. So it's a really great collectible to have.
Yeah, it was like it looked like a heavy metal base, and it obviously Disney isn't in a circular shape, so stuff wasn't really relevantly placed to where it was. But I mean, I remember seeing like little water skier on it and the different
Yeah.
hotels. I mean, it was kind of neat and I saw it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. But $300 was a little steep for a trinket to sit on my desk.
There was one in Mickey's house at the Magic Kingdom when Mickey's Birthday Land was around. So listeners may have seen it as they were like walking through there.
I've got
Same exact thing.
Yep, same exact one.
I've got some
Wow.
old video of that. I'm going to have to check on that. Now, how do we know who drew it? Was it Paul Hartley?
I
I mean, it's very close in style.
It was either him or Sam McKinnon. It's one of those.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a real loose, nice, cartoony style.
Chad,
Is that the shag almost that people have been calling it nowadays? That style, or no? Is it something different?
Yeah, I'd say Shag was definitely influenced by that illustration, those illustrations.
Now, Chad, any plans to do the Globe?
I
The styrofoam balls are on sale at your craft store. So
There you go.
I'm waiting for Chad to say he's going to do the life-size Mary Blair mural from the lot from the
Oh.
Grand Canyon Concourse.
Already working on that.
life size. That would be huge. So, all right. Anything else on the audio viewer mail, whatever we're calling it, JT?
No, that was from David. But if you do have a question for us, you'd like to possibly get on the air, any comments, anything like that, podcast@retrodisneyworld.com is our email address, and we'll get that and address it as a group.
Excellent. And we should mention too. Somebody had some ideas for some holiday items.
Oh yes.
We didn't have enough time to prepare, but we are going to be planning a holiday episode. We're not too sure when we're going to do it, but Brian's got that task, and we'll be working on putting one of those.
It'll either
shows.
be for the holidays next year or Christmas in July. It'll all depend on the tiki gods.
That's We'll talk to
Exactly.
Hal. He can help command them. So,
Right.
so all right, excellent. Well, we're going to move along here to the film restoration. The one that we've picked this month is about the contemporary, and this section of the podcast is brought to us by Pixel. For a thoughtful, once-in-a-lifetime gift, contact Pixel to create pristine digital transfers from your old home movies, videos, photos, and slides. And they also now feature the Reflectera app, and the Reflectera app gives you the ability to store all of your photos and videos in chronological order. To get started today, visit pixel.com or call 1-800-557-3508. And also to receive an additional 10% off your order, visit us at retrodisneyworld.com/imageworks for the coupon and instructions. So now this contemporary film is actually, I should mention, is actually 3 films, and we've all watched it. I went ahead and put them all together because there was enough clips from one and enough clips from another. I figured, you know what, let's just mesh them all together, and it's fair amount of time on this. I think it runs 9 minutes or so. So what do you guys see in this? I think you've all looked at it. What stands out and what interests you?
Monorail heavy, definitely at the beginning, which is cool because you see those crazy cool like flip out doors, like you can just make out the difference between now and then.
Yeah. Did you notice how white the monorail beams look?
Yes. Why can't they hit those with a pressure washer now? Every time I go, it makes
they
me
did
so
in
mad.
Epcot for a little bit, but
That's garbage.
yeah. Whoever took this, and I should mention it's 3 films, but it was 3 different individuals who took the film. But it is very monorail heavy. But I got to give credit to the guy. He went out, to like the little balcony and shot out as the monorails were coming in, and he did.
Yeah, he was
really
shooting
cool
from the outer stairwells. And all kinds of interesting angles we don't see very often.
Yep.
One of the first things once you get past the monorails, and it is probably 3 or 4 minutes of the 9 is various angles of monorails. But I did mention earlier the rear of the resort, the recreation area, is so different from how it is today. And so the first thing I noticed was all the trees. So many trees that separated the actual tower of the hotel from the pool area and the marina area, none of which is there now. I mean, it's all
Right.
a wide open space.
Yeah.
And then I also mentioned that Starburst dock, which you can see out there for the water sprites. But the whole marina area, I mean, it's very laid back, very genteel, as much of the resort was back then. But the neat thing is there's a shot from right along the shoreline of one of the boats, or actually from the boat coming in from Fort Wilderness area over towards the Contemporary.
Yeah.
He's actually on board the boat.
That's about
And I said,
it starts around for those playing at home. It starts around 3:45. So
right, and then at the 4:05 mark, you see a slide. It looks like a regular swimming pool slide, except it dumps out into Bay Lake instead of into the swimming pool. And you actually see a guy going off the slide into the water.
There he goes.
Which is really neat.
Yep.
I mean, to see now. And then, of course, the large beach area that's just off there is really a lot bigger than it is today.
At 4:15, we hit the one of our holy grails. Well, I guess it's partial. We see the bob-along boats. Or, I'm sorry, bob-around boats. They're just chilling,
right there at
chilling,
the
bobbing.
dock.
Yeah, we still, please, if you have any film of people actually in the bob-around boats, I'm sorry, bob-along, actually moving in them and doing something with them, please do send it in. It's one of our...
For people at home that don't know what we're talking about, can you give the 15 seconds as to what the bob-along boats were?
Absolutely. You may have a little more recollection if they had power or how they work, but they were essentially about 7-8 feet across or so. They kind of look like a pot in the water, very colorful base, and they had a very colorful striped top that looked like an inverted funnel, and you would sit in the middle, and through whatever means of propulsion, you would literally bob in a circle around the lake. For what reason or another, I don't know. Was it mechanical or what happened? They were eventually taken out of service, I think, rather quickly, too.
Yeah, supposedly they weren't very... I think they did have some sort of motor that didn't work very well and not for very long, so it seemed like they had to get towed in all the time.
And also, let's just think about this. This is a boat that's supposed to cut through the water, but it's a circle. Now, I'm not a rocket science or a physicist here, but let's just think about that. Johnny's got to go out. It's going to take you 15 minutes of your 15 minutes of time or half hour of time to get out. As soon as you get out, you're going to turn around and come back in. It had to be pretty slow. I don't know. But
I see the kid in the water sprite having a lot more fun than this kid who got the bob around.
Yeah,
those were fun.
I see the kids in the water sprite zooming by the guys in the bob around, causing some wake there.
Ha ha ha! Just
now there's
like the kid that got picked last in kickball got the bob around boat.
Now, when did they quit with the sailboats? Because I see the sailboats lined up there. How long were those? I never rode a sailboat. Like, when did those disappear?
I remember those into the mid '80s.
Really?
Yeah.
How? Any?
Yeah, I was going to say at least the 80s, because I remember they went from there's lots of promo pictures, especially mid 80s, where they have these very colorful kind of sails, like orange.
I have all of the calendars. The park, believe it or not, they didn't do a park specific calendar until 1981. Everything before that was just characters and such. And they went up through, I have them all the way up through 89 or 90. And most of them are heavy on the sailboat shots from the Polynesian beach or off of out in Bay Lake, that kind of stuff.
They loved those sailboats.
Were they conditioned?
They did it. They had great colors. I mean, the sails were so colorful, and they added so much to every photograph that they were in.
It's hard to find a single promotional shot like that's taken on the water where there isn't a sailboat in the background.
Yeah, I mean, here I've got one right here, World Magazine. I don't know what year this is. I'd have to try and figure out, but right on the cover, right on the cover there is the sailboat. I remember that, was it yellow and green even into the 90s? Or maybe they were small catamarans or something too.
But I mean, is that a normal vacation goer right there with that tilt riding it like that? I mean, that just doesn't seem like that easy. Like that looks like a professional regatta.
Yeah, I believe this is what you would call a little advertising license here. Well,
right.
Because what if you got it and it wasn't windy?
Yeah,
and you got stuck out there. Like, did they create problems or?
They're good, 7-8 feet off the water there on the right keel.
Once
Yeah.
again, the water sprite guy goes circles around you when the wind stops. He just
Better be careful. So,
Doyle rules there.
So, the other interesting part about this film is it does go inside, and well, we're treated to monorails again. There's a great shot of it pulling in. If anybody wants to, I'd love to have somebody recreate this carpet online. How you've got some good artistic skills. We should make some backgrounds for phones and
that would be tight.
I was looking at that
yeah,
one
and there's
today.
some great overhead shots too. You can probably get some really good idea of what the design was.
Yeah, and I think we're looking at the second generation carpet in here because I was looking at some of the renovations. So from what I can tell, when the Contemporary first opened, there was a little bit of disharmony between the Mary Blair mural and some of the rest of the decor. And it looks like somebody came in about mid-70s and tried to homogenize that area. Because I noticed in this case, like the carpet matched the drapes. Somebody came in and redid that carpet where the colors perfectly matched the Mary Blair mural. And I was like, nice job.
What was it originally? Do we know? Do we have?
I think I've got to look back at some of your earlier things to see, but I think the carpet was updated, and it looks like they actually went through the rooms at that time and redid it too. And added the Mary like those little Mary Blair mural styled like pictures in the rooms too. Because from when we look at the U.S. Steel stuff in the early 70s, 71, it's like none of that stuff is in there. It's all very super contemporary.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll have to try and figure that out.
Whoever shot this one though, man, the coolest angles though, like this upper angle, like I'm craning my head left and right to see, like, but it's so cool because it's got this sweet, like, I mean, I think he's got half of the lobby in one shot almost. Like it's just
there's two things I want to mention too. If you start at start around the 6 o'clock mark, we mentioned the plexiglass trees. You're going to see those there. Some of them are even edge lit with mini white lights. Now, JT, what you just talked about, the really odd angle, and this is where Brian and I found this part of the film is one of the ones that Brian and I found online, and this comes from what I call the Paramount Pictures collection. We don't know what the history of these films were. It was a collection of 24 3-minute 8mm films. A lot of it was junk, but when I looked at it, they were in the original boxes, and the company that it was sent back to after processing was listed as Paramount Pictures. And every now and then you see the same guy. Actually, in one of the other upcoming films we have, you see the guy in it, and there was them on Amtrak taking the train, and I the guy playing a guitar. I don't know what this was. I'm putting the picture together in my head that this was some sort of, go out, investigate, take a lot of footage, and find out what Disney did so we can do something or other. I could be completely wrong. I don't have a date on any of the films. We could go through more and try to figure it out. But everything from about the 6 minute mark on is from this collection of films.
It's very
it is, and you know what's interesting? How one of the films I just did for you that we're going to be releasing soon, the Home of the Future, that was from them too, and they did not leave anything uncovered. They took a lot of long panning shots. They took a lot of things from different angles that most people wouldn't take. So I don't know. Was this a recon mission? I couldn't tell you, but I do find it very interesting.
When did the Paramount theme parks come out? Like 80s? Is that when they kicked out? Like early 80s, like Paramount's Kings Island, like those kind of places, or do we know?
Good question. I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
King's Dominion and stuff.
But I think Paramount, if I'm not mistaken, Paramount owned the theme park in Ohio. Where the Brady Bunch episode was filmed.
That's Kings Island. Cedar Point's up north. That's
Kings Island, and that would have been. I mean, that would have predated some of this. I mean, it would have certainly predated the film because I think the film, Todd, was dated 78.
With housing with the carpet, I guess we don't really know when this was refurbed. We could probably try to make a good guess. And I've got a lot of their other films that we could use to tie in a good picture.
78 seems pretty consistent from what I know about the time.
So you're thinking this is around 78, looks to be right. Yeah.
That would work.
Like you said, I mean, you look at the 8-minute mark, and this guy's got like you said, JT, you're craning your neck. I mean, how many people really went up to the very top floor? And I think the film ends with it, with this fantastic shot, looking across, around the 857 mark. This fantastic shot where he pans across the entire Grand Canyon concourse. You can get a layout of every booth, every seat. I mean, not many people would do that. So I don't know. Maybe we have a very interesting collection of films on hand.
JT, just to answer your question, Paramount bought all of its theme parks in 1992. So prior to that,
so maybe they
didn't
had
own them.
plans for something. I don't know.
Look,
Possibly.
it's one that I can't help but look. These lights, it looks so much like a early '80s, late '70s mall with those.
And if you look carefully, there's an orange juice dispenser in the buffet. If you can, did you see that?
I saw that. I saw only because you pointed it out. But I saw the big orange juice.
It's there.
Machine.
It's there. Freshly squeezed.
Is it a big orange?
No, it's just a regular juice like you would have seen at a snack bar in the mall.
Oh, okay.
But it fascinated Todd for some reason.
It just showed it was real life, you know. They had orange juice back then too, I guess.
Oh, hey, I'll throw in one challenge to you. So, what piece of Epcot Center Communicore actually ended up serving out its last days in the Contemporary Hotel?
Starting out as its last days. The only thing that comes to mind is World Key Information. It's the only thing that comes to mind. But
was it in the arcade?
It was not in the arcade.
Okay, then my guess would have been something in the arcade.
So Smart One.
That was gonna be my second guess.
From
I was thinking that
somehow or another he ended up getting repurposed as a greeter for the cafe on the 4th floor. They threw a remote control thing, like a remote control wheels under him, and gave him the ability to hold a tray. And he would wheel around and give people drinks and food.
Now, if I could
stuff.
sit at the Outer Rim Lodge and have him bring a drink to me, that would be cool. I'd pay
That
for
would
that
be
and
awesome.
then the room.
It goes with the Southwest decor, though.
I would settle for like a long trough where a big track just kind of drug my drink down to kind of go along with the 70s theme there.
There you go. So
A floating sushi bar. That's what it needs.
Yes.
All right. Well, guys, I think we've got to, unfortunately.
It's a very good video, though.
It did come out well. You can thank Paramount Pictures for it.
And your color correction is magical. I love it.
It's funny when you have that many films, and I've been working on another one, a 16 millimeter press film that was released by the Disney company, and they just used crap film. I'll be straight up and honest. And the best way to do it is to do color adjustment for every single scene. But a lot of times, what I've got to do, I've just got to take a common denominator. I don't have the time to sit there and every scene change, fix the color. And I'm sure there's better software and better processes out there. But I think what we've got here gets the point across and really shows, what was out there. And kudos to Pixel for doing their scanning too. So, yep,
for sure.
So. All right. Well, with that, guys, I think we've got to close it out. Let's do some thank yous and sponsors, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do next time. Again, sponsors, the film restoration section was brought to you by Pixel.com. Please visit retrodisneyworld.com/imageworks for your 10% off coupon. We also want to thank Chad for joining us for his WDW map. Chad, you still there? I'm really glad. Excellent.
I am
glad to have
Thanks,
you
Todd.
on. Yeah,
Appreciate
it's really great, and I'm looking forward to see if you make the Globe for us. So that'll be your next the next project. Exactly.
See what I can do.
Get on it, Chad.
We also have some other information we'll post in this release. I don't have the full set of information yet, but Chris Buckholes has created an attraction poster, and that attraction poster features all the different ride vehicles of Walt Disney World from original up until today. I didn't count them all, but he's sent us a couple copies to take a look of and look at, and we're going to get you a link to that. So be on the lookout for that. So thanks to Chris for sponsoring us as well. And if you or anybody else is interested in sponsoring this podcast, you can email us at info@retrodisneyworld.com. You can find us at RetroWDW on Twitter. And JT, Brian, give me your your Twitter addresses where we can find you.
This week I'm going to throw out this month at Hoagie's Garage if you want to follow my foibles on the automotive world.
You can find me, Brian, at Brian P. Miles on Twitter.
And you can find me, Hal, at Liquid Luau.
Chad, are you on Twitter? Do you want people to find you? You're not.
I am not.
Oh, Chad.
Oh, you're so not cool.
I'm sorry.
Facebook, anything? Yeah.
Yes, I am on Facebook. WDW Map.
All right, there you go.
All
Good
right.
shit. So
Very good.
Last time, who chose the contemporary last time? Was it Brian or was it JT? Who chose? That was
That
you.
was
So
me.
Brian,
I chose that.
it's your go, right? What do you have? What are you
Well,
going to choose for our next episode?
I
Behind
Boys Cabin is
Holidays at Boys Cab.
we can do Fort Wilderness. That can be our next resort over there.
Oh, please do it.
Yeah, let's go with
Wilderness it
Fort
is. We do
Wilderness
have
for
some
January.
footage of some,
Because then we can talk
we can
about
talk
Roy's Cabin some
We
more.
got the railroad,
Yes.
and all right. So Fort Wilderness it is. All right, well, that does it, and I appreciate everybody for listening. Again, if you enjoy this, we do appreciate a review on iTunes if possible, and give us a rating. If you have any questions, you can always email us at podcast@retrodisneyworld.com. Once again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next month. Brian, take us out.
Do not pull down on the safety bar, please. I will lower it for you.
When you and your family visit Walt Disney World in Florida, come stay in this spectacular hotel. It's one of two that United States Steel helped plan and build here. But this is more than a hotel. It's a prototype of a whole new way to build, and we're involved. Everything about it is striking, but most unusual is the way the rooms were made. Instead of being built in place, the rooms for this hotel were assembled in a nearby factory by our American Bridge Division. First came a steel frame, then a floor of poured concrete, wall panels from our USS Holmes Division. Next, the ceiling with air conditioning built right in. Then wall covering, a complete bath, even sliding doors. When the units leave the factory, they're trucked to the site and fitted into this 14-story frame like drawers into a chest. We're confident that schools, hospitals, and other structures will soon be built this revolutionary way. We not only supplied the structural steel, the cement and the foundations came from our Universal Atlas Cement Division. So come, stay at this unique hotel, a remarkable place inside and out. We're finding new ways to build. At United States Steel, we're involved.